The fellas, we've just had UFC 312 where we've seen Dricus dominating 50-45 Sean Strickland, taking him away from title contention. I thought the Aussie crowd were amazing. We're going to get into the card right now and talk about the individual fights, and we'll go in there with the first fight on the card, which was Quillan Salkilld versus Anshul Jubli. Salkilld got a KO in the first round, starting off the card with a bang. I think it was like a 20-second knockout as well from Salkilld. Yeah, just went out there against Anshul Jubli. I heard a couple of people saying early stoppage. I didn't think it was an early stoppage. It was like a 10-15 second KO. Great way to start the card and an amazing debut. Because of the lack of finishes on this card, I'm not even mad if they give Salkilld a bonus for that. I think it was like a 15-second knockout against Anshul Jubli for the first fight on the card for his UFC debut. Great way to debut. I was saying coming into this fight, I was looking at a lot of the tape on Salkilld, and he looks like a really quick, snappy striker. And to do that against Anshul Jubli in the first round was very good. Jubli's a decent striker. I just don't know if he's UFC worthy. I feel like the only reason the UFC are keeping him in the UFC, or keeping Anshul Jubli in the UFC, is to push kind of the India fan base, but it doesn't really seem to be working. But Salkild's going to be a problem, man. He's a solid striker. He just displayed that he's UFC worthy. He just displayed that he's dangerous. I think he's got a lot of potential as well. I'm in the lightweight division, so great debut by Salkilld. Call for a bonus. I'm not mad if they give him a bonus. And for Anshul Jubli, like I said, not sure if he's UFC worthy, but good win, good debut, great way to start off the card with one of the only finishes on the card with Quillan Salkilld, with I think a 15-second knockout. I think it was the second fastest knockout as well in lightweight history, so great debut for Salkilld. Then we had Jousset versus Jonathan Micallef, where Jonathan Micallef got a decision win. Micallef really impressed me in this fight. It was a very stand-up heavy fight, not much grappling, which I didn't really expect considering you've got a judo expert in Jousset and a heavy grappler in Micallef, but it turned into a stand-up fight where Jonathan Micallef pieced him up across 3 rounds and absolutely destroyed him with the body kicks. This was a really fun kickboxing fight. Micallef really impressed me. I thought coming into this fight, it was going to be Micallef trying to take him down, and if he doesn't take him down, then it's going to be Jousset piecing him up on the feet, but it really wasn't that. I mean, it wasn't necessarily domination on the feet, but Micallef had the bigger moments. He was absolutely destroying him with the body kicks, the leg kicks, keeping him at range, and he really impressed me in this fight because he has got a good grappling background. He's just shown that he's a good striker, and that was a good performance. Jousset, I feel like he's good, but he hasn't really lived up to the hype. People were hyping this guy up in his UFC debut under his first 2 UFC fights. This big judo prospect with striking from the City Kickboxing Gym is now 0-2 in his past 2 fights, finished by Brian Battle and outstruck by a grappler. But nasty body kicks from Micallef. Great win, great UFC debut, and I think if he can sharpen up his striking, that's good for him. And for Jousset, I think he's got to sharpen up his striking too, and I'm kind of confused, like I said at the beginning, how there was no grappling exchanges between the two of them. I mean, even Jousset, though, many opportunities to get him in the clinch and then take him down with the judo, but he didn't even try. But good win for Micallef. Absolutely slashed him with the body kicks. It was a good back and forth fight. They were both swinging out there, and it was a really good performance from Micallef, outdoing Jousset, and I think Jousset needs a bit of a step down in competition after that, and maybe he wasn't as, good. Maybe he didn't live up to the hype as much as we thought he would. Next fight, we had Kody Steele versus Rongzhu. Again, the underdog wins. The experienced Rongzhu pulls off a dominant decision over Kody Steele, where it was, again, another heavy stand-up fight, which I didn't expect when you've got 2 kind of grapplers now. I mean, Kody Steele comes from a heavy jiu-jitsu background. Rongzhu is more of a submission guy, and it ended up being a stand-up fight. Early fight of the night contender. I actually think this should be fight of the night. After all the fights we've had on this card, I think this should have been fight of the night. They both were standing and banging out there. Swinging. I mean, the first minute of the first round was kind of hesitant, but after that, they were both just standing and banging, and it was mainly just Rongzhu outboxing Kody Steele for the majority of the fight. Steele seemed to be the more powerful guy, but it was just Rongzhu landing him, walking forward, landing the combinations, and just outdoing him. Even when he got taken down, escaped the submission immediately. And I'm surprised that, like I said at the beginning, Kody Steele didn't initiate the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu early. He comes from this heavy Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background, but he didn't really try and initiate the grappling at all. I think he attempted 1 submission in the entire fight, and that was it. I didn't really understand why he didn't mix it up with the grappling, because he was dominantly losing on the feet, but it was a good fight. Good standing and banging performance from both of them. Probably fight of the night. If I'm going to give anybody fight of the night, I think these guys have deserved it. Rongzhu outboxed Kody Steele and got a good win. Next fight, Colby Thicknesse versus Aleksandre Topuria. This is one of the fights on the prelims I was looking forward to the most. You've got the debut of Ilia Topuria's brother, coached by Ilia Topuria, versus this Australian undefeated guy who's coached by Alexander Volkanovski. Topuria looked really good in this fight, got the decision win. I actually thought he'd get the finish, but either way, Aleksandre Topuria gets the decision win over Colby Thicknesse. My takeaways from this fight, it was a good debut from Topuria. He looks very similar to Ilia. He had very sharp boxing, where he felt like at any moment he could put the lights out of Colby Thicknesse. He had really good wrestling. At one point in the fight, he hit him with a suplex and he nearly broke his neck. He looked really good in this fight, did Topuria. Very low output, I will admit. His output was very low. He wasn't really throwing many significant strikes. But similar to Ilya, when he did throw, it was all with heavy caution. But he looks like a good prospect. I think the more experience you give Topuria in the UFC, the better he's going to get. And he looks very similar to Ilya. Backs you against the cage with this heavy boxing style. And he's got really good grappling too. Thicknesse is UFC worthy though. You know, he was able to survive. I actually thought he was actually winning the fight in the third round on the feet. Obviously for the majority of the fight, I would have given it to Topuria. But in that third round specifically, it looked like Thicknesse had kind of found his range and had found his rhythm and was kind of outstriking Topuria. But then he kept initiating the grappling, which I didn't expect, because every time Thicknesse initiated the grappling, that's where Topuria was able to counter, take his back, and basically get the dominant position in the grappling exchanges. So I didn't really understand why Thicknesse did that. Kind of poor fight IQ, and I think Volkanovski told him to do that, which isn't the best corner advice, but he looked good on the feet. I think he's UFC worthy. We give him another chance. It was on short notice at the end of the day. Maybe put him against somebody coming through from the Contender Series, and for Topuria, looked really good. A good prospect in the featherweight division, and obviously by the time he gets to the top, Ilya's not going to be there anymore. So good debut for Aleksandre Topuria. Didn't get the finish, but he still looks sharp, and I think again, the more experience you give him in the octagon, the more time you give him to improve, the better he's going to get, because he's a dangerous striker. He was out boxing Thicknesse and definitely out wrestling for the majority of the fight too. Yeah, good performance from Topuria. And again, the Georgians beat the Australians. Next fight we had was Wang versus Bruna, Brasil. Yeah, Wang, as I expected, absolutely pieced up Bruna, Brasil for the majority of the fight. I thought she could have got a finish in that third round. But yeah, Wang basically dominates it to get a decision win. A great performance from Wang. You know, completely pieced her up for 3 rounds straight, and she's a really good kickboxer. I think she's a solid kickboxing prospect. She beat Valentina Shevchenko in a kickboxing fight previous to the UFC show, so she's got really good kickboxing. Very powerful, very quick and snappy on the feet. Bruna Brasil's also a good striker though. I thought she had looked improved as well. I mean, she looked improved in the Molly McCann fight where she nearly finished her, and even in this fight in the beginning of the first round, it wasn't like she was doing bad necessarily, but she just got completely outclassed. There are levels to this in the UFC. Wang is on a completely different level to Bruna Brasil with the striking. I say we give Wang maybe one more fight, and then we give her somebody in the rankings. I know previous to Bruna Brasil, she got submitted, but she was winning that fight as well. I think now that she's got a win, her confidence is going to be back, and it's going to be fun to see what she does. And for Bruna Brasil, I know she's like 2-3 in the UFC, but again, she looked improved. She's got good stand-up. Give her another chance against another lower-level opponent, and I think she'll pull through. I mean, she's at the Fighting Nerds, which seems to be one of the hottest gyms when it comes to strikers. But anyway, Wang, good dominating performance, completely pieced up Bruna Brasil, had her running away in that third round, and a good performance from Wang. Then we had Nolan versus Borschev. Another really good fight. Another fight that went to a decision. This is kind of where we got to the period of the card where there were just constant decisions. But another decision, but it was a good fight from both of them, to be fair. Nolan pulling off a decision after he essentially outstruck Borschev for 3 rounds straight. My main takeaways is it was a really fun stand-up fight. Back and forth, mainly from Nolan though. Borschev had his moments, but it was mainly from Nolan. I think if Nolan can honestly sharpen up a little bit, he can be a genuine problem. There were a couple of times in this fight where it's kind of sloppy. He weren't able to get the takedowns. He was getting caught by Borschev, but I think if he can sharpen up, he's going to be a dangerous guy, because he's got crafty striking. He loves those spinning attacks, and he was piecing up Borschev, who's a good kickboxer. And he's also a busy grappler. He's not one of these grapplers that are going to take you down and kind of just lay there. He's looking for submissions, and if it's not submissions, he's looking to damage you on the ground. I didn't like the time when he was kind of just sitting on it, but even when he was like on his back and Borschev was up, he hit him with an up kick, which was impressive. That's the sort of shit you see from Sharmagomedov. Borschev, he's a fun guy, fun kickboxer, fun personality, but he's got a lot of work to do. I mean, his stamina is terrible. After the second round, he was completely gassed out, which meant that Nolan could just walk him down. And obviously, the grappling of Borschev is his biggest weakness. He got taken down a couple of times from Nolan. Didn't get dominated with the grappling, but he definitely got taken down. Good fight, good performance from Nolan. And yeah, it was just another good fight. Then we had the prelim headliner, Jack Jenkins versus Gabriel Santos. I said this coming into the fight. Gabriel Santos is going to be a problem in the future. He debuted against Lerone Murphy, arguably beat him. Then he faces David Onama, had a good performance against Onama and got finished. Then he gets a win, and now he's facing Jack Jenkins, and he absolutely dominated Jack Jenkins in the stand-up, in the wrestling, and in the jiu-jitsu, and he gets a submission to put the cherry on top in the third round. Yeah, dominating performance from Gabriel Santos. I think he got dropped by a head kick in the first round, but then immediately after he got dropped, he managed to get Jack Jenkins in a triangle choke and then reversed to position to get on top. And then in the second round, he was just completely outstriking Jack Jenkins, took him down and got the submission in the third. Santos is an absolute monster. He's literally amazing everywhere the fight goes, whether it be power, stamina, chin, recovery, grappling, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, striking, wherever it is, Gabriel Santos just looks pretty much unstoppable. I know he got dropped in the first round by Jack Jenkins, but Jenkins is a heavy, powerful striker as well, but Santos is going to be a monster. I think he's one of the best unranked 145ers right now. There's a couple of guys on that unranked 145ers list. You've got the likes of Gene Silva, William Gomez, maybe Joanderson Brito, but you've definitely got to put Gabriel Santos in there as well. I think if Gabriel Santos can get another win against another unranked featherweight, I say we give him somebody in the rankings. Like I said, debuted on short notice against Leroy Murphy and arguably beat him, and now he's just done that to Jack Jenkins, dominated him and pulled off a submission. He's from Crute Box with Charles Oliveira. He's from a good gym. Good prospect in the 145 division. He's got a big, bright future ahead of him. 2-fight winning streak now for Gabriel Santos. And for Jack Jenkins, still looked all right. I mean, like I said, powerful striker is Jack Jenkins. Absolutely dominated Herbert Burns in his last fight, but he fell short against a better guy in Gabriel Santos. So it's a tough one for Jack Jenkins. Got dominated in front of Australia, but I don't think that's necessarily anything against him. I think that's just how good Gabriel Santos is and the fact that he's the future of the featherweight division. Then we had the first fight on the main card, Jake Matthews versus Francisco Prado. Jake Matthews, the decision machine, gets another decision. Jake Matthews is a bit of a tough fighter when it comes to decisions because he's not dangerous enough to get finishes, but he's tough enough and he's got a good enough chin to not get finished himself. Essentially just outboxes Francisco Prado for 3 rounds straight. Nothing significant to really talk about in this fight. He had got crisp striking though as Jake Matthews. I will say, he used to have a very heavy grappling style, whereas now he kind of seems to have transitioned to a striker. And he's a pretty good striker as well. He was outboxing Francisco Prado. His stand-up's improving, but I do wish he'd mix it up with the grappling. I think if he was able to mix it up with the grappling, it makes it more effective with his game. It makes it, I guess, a funner fight. It puts more, you know, it makes Francisco Prado, keeps him guessing a lot more as well, and obviously gives him another opportunity to get a finish. So I wish he'd mix it up with the grappling that he does have, but I guess it was a good performance by Jake Matthews. Ended up calling out Neil Magny. I never expected anyone to call out Neil Magny in 2025, but I say we do it, man. We're giving Jake Matthews, somebody who's unranked, a step up in the unranked area of the middleweight, welterweight division. I say we give him Neil Magny. For Francisco Prado, he didn't look terrible. He had a good chin. He was getting cracked a couple of times, and he had a good chin, but he looks undersized in the 155 division. It goes back to that argument of a 165 division. I think that'll be perfect for Prado because he looks too big for 155, but too small for the welterweight division. I think he should move back down to the 155 division. He hasn't looked terrible there, and again, he looks massively undersized, but not much to talk about. Jake Matthews outboxes him, gets the win, and he's on a 2-fight winning streak now. Then we had Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato, which ended in a draw. I thought this was a correct decision. Jimmy Crute absolutely dominates him in the first round. I'd say 10-8s him, and then he kind of completely gasses out, where Rodolfo Bellato was able to pick up the next 2 rounds and get a 10-9 in the next 2. I thought it was a correct decision. I know there's probably going to be a few people online saying, oh, Bellato won, or Jimmy Crute, after what he did in that first round, should have won the fight. It was a correct decision. Jimmy Crute got the 10-8 in the first round. Bellato got 10-9 in the last 2. I thought it should have been a draw, which is tough for Jimmy Crute because 2 of his last 3 have now been draws, yet he still hasn't won a fight since 2020. But Jimmy absolutely battered him in the first. I honestly thought we were seeing Jimmy Crute 2.0. He took him down in the first round. Absolutely battered him and bullied him with ground and pound in that first round, and then he gets back up on the feet, starts standing and banging, drops Bellato, and if the first round had like an extra 30 seconds, I think he would have finished Bellato as well. He got a 10-8 in the first round, looked completely different, and then he had to fully gas out. In the second round, he was completely gassed out, couldn't shoot a takedown, couldn't get Bellato down, and it was just Bellato piecing up Jimmy Crute, slashing him with the leg kick, outboxing him on the feet. I think both of them are UFC worthy. I don't think either of them should be cut from the UFC, especially after a performance like that where it was a fun fight, but they've still got work to do. Jimmy Crute, for the amount of time he's had off, I expected his stamina to be a little bit better. He did look good with the wrestling and the striking, but it was mainly the stamina where he had letdowns. So for Rodolfo Bellato, again, very well-rounded, dangerous guy, but he's going to have a lot of work to do if he wants. I mean, if you're looking like that against the likes of Jimmy Crute, getting into the rankings is going to be tough. But it was a good fight. You know, they both had moments. They both kind of turned the shift in the fight, but ended up being a draw. Not really what you want to see. It's an awkward position where it's a draw because you can't really fault them for it because they didn't lose, but you can't praise them for it because they didn't win. But I think it should have been a draw. Jimmy Crute looked all right. I think he should stay in the UFC rather than retire because I know this could have taken a big hit to his confidence if he would have lost again, but yeah, there's not really much to say. Fun fight, ended in a draw. Then we had Justin Tafa versus Tallison Teixeira, where in about 1 minute of the fight, Tallison Teixeira basically just starts charging at Justin Tafa for a takedown. Justin Tafa defends the takedown. Tallison Teixeira elbows Justin Tafa with one shot, knocks him out. Well, didn't knock him out, but he dropped him. And then Justin Tafa somehow complains about the stoppage after he wasn't responsibly defending. I'm going to say this about Tallison Teixeira. But before I talk about Tallison Teixeira, it wasn't an early stoppage. I know there's going to be people crying about an early stoppage. If you elbow someone in the face and they fall to the ground immediately and start covering up and don't answer any strikes, in my eyes at least, and in the eyes of the referee, that's a good stoppage. It wasn't an early stoppage. I don't know what Justin Tafa was on about. I think he should be cut from the UFC. I know people like to hype up these fat heavyweights from the, you know, the Tafa brothers, the ones that every now and then will pick up a win because they don't really care in any of their fights, and then they might pull off a knockout win every now and then. But the guy's, what is he, 5-4? What is he, 7-5 in the UFC? I don't know his record, but he's nearly got more losses than he has wins. Yeah, but it brings absolutely nothing to the UFC, does Justin Tafa. If we're going to cut the likes of Rosenstrike and Romanov and Nascimento, cut him from the UFC, make an example out of him. Shitty performance. And then for Tallison Teixeira, let me just say this. He's a huge heavyweight prospect. I know we said the same thing about Rebellis Despain, but this guy's 8-0, 6'7". I think all of his fights have ended by first round finish. He's rangy, he's huge, he's not fat and unathletic. He's dangerous on the feet, but he's also got good grappling. I say we're giving somebody in the rankings. I mean, if Dontel Mayers is ranked in 2025, what's stopping Tallison Teixeira from being ranked? He's in the most shallow division. He just steamrolled Justin Tafa. Let's give Tallison Teixeira somebody in the rankings, because we're in the era now where we've got to get rid of these fat heavyweights. We've got to take them out. We've got to take them out. If we're going to take out the likes of Rosenstrike, we've got to replace him with guys like Tallison Teixeira. Get him in the rankings, or at least give him a ranking opponent. But yeah, just steamrolled him in the first round, elbowed him in the face, dropped him, got the finish. And I think he's going to go far in the heavyweight division, because in a division like heavyweight, it doesn't take much to go far. But good finish for Tallison Teixeira. 2-0 in the, well, if you count the Contender Series, 2-0 in the UFC with 2 stoppages. And for Justin Tafa, I'm sick of these fat heavyweights, you know, just walking around like they don't care and then expecting to stay in the UFC. Cut him from the UFC. Terrible performance. Quit after 1 shot. And that brings us to the core main event where Zhang Weili, it was like watching her against Amanda Lemos again. Absolutely dominates Tatiana Suarez across 5 rounds. And I say it, she's too good for the strawweight division. From start to finish, taking her down, and even on the feet cracking Tatiana Suarez. But yeah, Weili just absolutely dominated her. She's the best women MMA fighter in the world right now, above Shevchenko. Shevchenko got submitted by Grasso, drew with her in the second fight. And even though she dominated Grasso, it wasn't anywhere near as dominating as how Weili's doing these strawweights as well. So I think she should be pound for pound number 1 in the women MMA ranking. She's the best women MMA fighter in the UFC. And I say we let her move up for double champ status. I mean, she's cleared out the strawweight division. Rose Namajunas has ran off. She's beaten everyone at Zhang Weili. Beat Tatiana Suarez. Beat Amanda Lemos. Who did she beat in the last fight? I forgot who she fought in the last fight, but she got another win in the last fight. Knocked out Joanna Jędrzejczyk as well. Beat Carla Esparza. It's got to be it for Zhang Weili in the strawweight division. Let her move up and face Valentina Shevchenko, the pound for pound number 1 versus pound for pound number 2. And for Tatiana Suarez, she's tough. She's a really good wrestler. She actually won the first round against Zhang Weili with the wrestling. But there's levels to this game, man. Zhang Weili, she's too quick and fluid on the feet. She's too strong for the division, and she's too good of a wrestler. She's just too good of a fighter. She's dominating. She might not be the most entertaining, but even then when she's grappling though, she's a busy grappler. She's always constantly going with ground and pound, and to out-grapple Tatiana Suarez, who's seen as this, you know, grappling monster. Great performance for Zhang Weili. I say we'll let her move up a weight class and face Valentina Shevchenko. And for Suarez, put her against somebody like Mackenzie Dern in like a Fight Night main event to help her come back. And that's what happens when you stay out the octagon for so long. She's so inactive, is Tatiana Suarez, that her stand-up is terrible. Her conditioning wasn't great. I mean, it wasn't awful, but it wasn't great as well. So I think we've just got to keep Tatiana Suarez active. I mean, it's going to be hard after she got cut open in that fight, but dominated performance from Weili. And that brings us to the main event, Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. 50-45, Dricus du Plessis puts the fight and puts the rivalry with Strickland to bed and remains the middleweight champion and gets a decision win. I know the crowd were booing and people calling it a boring fight, but realistically, they both did everything they could have done. You know, you can't expect Dricus to get any more wild than he already is. You can't expect Strickland to give up his boring, basic style. Great win by Dricus du Plessis. You know, he didn't even have to shoot a single takedown, and he got 50-45 against Sean Strickland. He was piecing him up on the feet. You know, Strickland coming into this fight was seen as the better striker, and Dricus du Plessis, he's evolving his game now. Outstrikes Sean Strickland. And for Strickland, man, the guy never changes his style. I said this coming into the fight. Dricus is changing in every single one of his fights, whether that be his stamina, his striking, his grappling. Strickland never changes. He's got the exact same style in every fight, and even though it works to some extent, it doesn't work against Dricus du Plessis, so it's going to be Chimaev next. I'm sick of this Strickland versus Dricus rivalry now. It's going to be boring. The fights aren't overly entertaining. They're not terrible fights. They were standing and trading on the feet, mainly from Dricus du Plessis landing on Strickland. Broke his nose badly in that 4th round. but Strickland just wasn't adjusting. I don't know why Strickland never attempts to wrestle. I really don't. I know he's kind of got this whole stand and bang personality, but reality, it's just jab and teeps. But you look at his early UFC career, he was so effective with the grappling. I don't know why he's giving it up. And, you know, he's always talking about till the death, but then when he broke his nose, he was running away from Dricus du Plessis. So there's a lot of contradicting from Strickland. But good win for Dricus du Plessis. 2 title defenses now. Crute, if he can get a couple more defenses, in my opinion, if Dricus can beat Chimaev, he's overtaken Adesanya as the greatest middleweight of all time. If you really look at his resume, I know Strickland isn't the guy we wanted next, but you look at these wins he's putting together, it's really impressive. I say we do Dricus versus Chimaev next. That has to be next, maybe in like Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi towards the end of the year. And for Strickland, give him like a Caio Borralho. Give him like a maybe not even a number, maybe give him the winner of Anthony Hernandez and Brendan Allen. He's already beaten Brendan Allen, but who cares? But good win for Dricus du Plessis. Dominated Sean Strickland, 50-45'd him. And I'm excited to see what the excuse is for Strickland after this. But that's my thoughts on UFC 312. Listen, it was never a great card coming into it. It didn't perform amazingly. It is what it is. It was whatever. There was a couple of good fights in there, but let me know your thoughts on UFC 312 and if you agree with the takes I made in this video. Thank you for watching.